Oops, there we go. Good day, podcast community. Pete Kane here, Podcast Pete and certified high performance coach. We got a special guest in the house. This person I've known for a few years.
Yeah.
I know her from, she's wearing green, and we were kidding before we got on that grass does not grow under Janine's feet. She's always on the move. So, Janine, for the ones that don't know you, tell them who you are, what you do, and who you serve, and then we'll get into our podcast.
Okay, so who am I? Well, thank you for asking. First of all, as many of you know, that's one of the hardest questions to answer, because if you're a creative like I am, you're always building or doing something. And so what I like to say is, oh, hi, I'm a scientist, I'm an author, and I'm a shaman. And people are like, say, what? And I'm like, okay, maybe for you, I'm not all three. But I like what Pete wants to talk about today is my Entrepreneurs HQ, and also how you can become a published author, why that's important. And if you're not a published author or you already have a book, how you go about marketing it and using it to get people that you want in your life, as opposed to getting a lot of leads that you're like, oof, not a good fit.
Yeah, there's a strategy to everything. And just right before we came on the air, I got a text from a lady in my Rotary, and we had a conversation about her upcoming book. She's looking to promote it, looking where to publish it. She's written it, but she's stuck. She's stuck in where's the next step to do. So I want you to speak just from the ones that have that book. They put it together. They don't know what to do. What kind of benefits and what have you learned in your journey that could be helpful for our community that are in that position?
Oh my goodness. There's so many places I could go with that. Thank you. Let's start with, okay, I have a book. I've written it. What do I do next? I've got this thing in my hand, right? The first thing is, did you write it alone? Did you write it alone? Meaning, did you let anyone else know you were writing it? And were those people just like your intimates, like, maybe not your mom, not I don't know. But if you wrote it in seclusion, then let's start telling people you have a book.
Yep.
And yes, it's not published yet, but you need to build an email list. And the reason for this email list is, and Pete, you've probably already talked to your people about this, so I'm just going to confirm what you already know. And that is, there's only two pieces of digital real estate that you own. And the first one is your website. The second one is your email list. And so many high quality people try to segregate their lists. Now, you're supposed to, depending upon what you're selling and all that. If you get into that kind of automation, you already know what I'm talking about. But for people who are writing a book, this is different. They see this as, oh, this is so different. And the reason it's so different is because I have my business and these are my clients and my customers, but I'm not ready to share with them my heart. And I don't care what kind of book you've written, you have put your heart into it. And that is scary stuff. You thought starting a business was scary. When you start writing a book, that's even more scary, because now you're inviting people into something that's really near and dear to you. And if you haven't been a creative most of your life, and this is your first major project where you're putting it out there for somebody to judge, and that's how it feels, even though people don't necessarily do that. I found that most of the harshest critics are the ones who never read my book.
Yep.
Right? So you learn to kind of ignore that, but you're not there yet. You've got this book in your hand. So the very first thing I would do, if you have a book in your hand and you are ready to publish it, I recommend that you start letting everybody that you know that you have a book and you're going to be sharing it a chapter at a time, and you are looking for beta readers. And that is my beta reader hub that I have. When people want to see a little bit more about me or whatever, I go, join my beta reader hub. And they're like, well, I don't want to get on your newsletter list. I said, it's not a newsletter. I'm shipping out my chapters to my people. And I'm always working on the next book, which is what Pete alluded to earlier. Is that I'm always writing the next book. And so they never know what genre I'm going to be writing in. And so they need to stay abreast of that by being on my beta readers hub. So no, it's not a newsletter. Literally, you're getting my content before anybody else does. So that would be my first suggestion.
Yeah, that, if I had a nickel for every person that has come up to me, they kind of know what I do. Some don't, some do, but I had a guy at church, he gives me his manuscripts. I literally call him because I read it. And I said, why don't you be a guest on my podcast and we can talk about why you wrote the book? Let's let people know you don't want to be a well-kept secret. He's handing out individual ones one at a time. Nobody, I mean, I give them a platform, and that was 3-4 months ago. And I've seen him a couple of times since. I said, when are you going to share your story with my podcast community? And he goes, and he just kind of like a deer in headlights, I guess. It's like, come on, you don't want to be a well-kept secret. Let people know. I love the beta. I love the beta reader. That's awesome. So once you became an author and you got that first or second book out, what was the perception or what was the response when you're out there podcasting, you're out there talking to people? How did they perceive you differently than before you became an author?
Okay, well, I've been in the game a long time. So my very first book was published in 2005, and we were not called podcasters. Back in that day, I was doing audio and I was doing broadcasting, but you had two options. You had radio shows, or you could be on live radio, or you could be what they were called an audio blogger. And audio bloggers would occasionally have guests, but not really. So I have to remember at the time that I published, YouTube had just started. So I've now published over 20 books, but I've watched an industry drastically change. But what I did is very similar to what I do now. And that is after I wrote the books, and I would walk up to somebody and I'd say, hey, I understand you have a radio show, or I understand you're an audio blogger, or I understand you have a blog. So you would ask to be a guest blogger and stuff like that. So that was a different route, but yeah, same thing. And people were like, oh, you already have a book? Sure, no problem. It was an immediate yes, because I had a book. I wasn't just somebody trying to make a name for myself. I wasn't somebody that was seen as, and I think this is the biggest one, I wasn't seen as, I just want your people, and I want your people, even though you have worked your butt off to get the following you have. And instead, I was seen as somebody that already had a community. Because I was an author, I had obviously followers. I had people who had read my book. So I was somebody who actually was seen then as a collaborator. And I was interested in collaboration. And it was very difficult because the young people got it. Like, and when I say young people, I meant people in their early 20s totally understood what I meant when I said, let's do a collab, because they were doing the gaming community, stuff like that. I was so far ahead of my time that when I would talk to anybody who was in their 40s and up, they had no idea what I meant. What are you talking about, collaboration? So you have to remember, back in 2005, that's where we were. People didn't understand what we do today, every day. So what about today, Janine? What would you recommend to people today? It's the same thing. You have to call people. You have to talk to people. And if you are in a room full of people, say you're at a networking event or something, ask people, hey, who has a podcast who's looking for guests? I just published a book. Or I'm writing a book. It will be published next year. May I be on your show? Are you looking for guests? And then you will see 5 to 6 hands raise, and you go talk to those people.
Wow. Okay, I want you to speak to my time people. I've heard this like more than probably the other one. And I'll say, have you ever considered writing a book? And they'll say, yeah, I don't have the time. So you have 4 kids, you have so much going on. You found the time.
Yeah.
So how did you overcome that prioritizing the important things and keep moving and getting things done?
So when people say, oh, yeah, I don't have the time, writing a book is not a priority for them, I walk away. If you think you don't have the time to do something, it's not a priority. If you have an inkling that you want to write a book, then I talk to you about how you make time. But you have to have the desire first. If you're not really honed in, if you're not really driving toward that goal or want to share that goal. Now, I understand some people don't have the confidence, right? They're like, oh, because I was told by my college professor, you're not a very good writer. Okay. I was told this. All right. So people like Hemingway and others, Einstein, all of these people that are incredibly much more intelligent and amazing than I, also had people tell them in their lives, really, you shouldn't do the math thing. You suck at math. I mean, Einstein was told this, right? So I just want to remind you guys that it doesn't matter what somebody else has said. Do you have a story that you want to share? Do you want to make the road a little bit easier for somebody? Did you overcome a massive boulder in your life? And I guarantee you, if there has ever been anyone say to you, I think you should write a book, it's because they wish you had written the book so they didn't have to go through that journey in that way. They want you to share with them what you did so they can do it differently. And like I say, don't make my mistakes, make different ones.
Yeah, that's a great one. I probably have made more mistakes than most. And,
right? Everybody feels that way.
Yeah, I know, because you do, because that's the way you learn.
Right.
I'm not afraid to make mistakes, but I definitely learn from them. But I had a guy on my podcast about maybe a year ago, and we were talking, and he said this. He said PTSG, which it stands for growth. And we go through pain, we can grow or we can wither. And a lot of times we don't share our pain or grow from our pain. Have you ever had that pain where you've had, growth in your life and you wanted to get it out? You wanted to help those people that are in that same situation, but you've, kind of figured it out. Could you share something with our listeners about that journey?
That is actually what I use in my marketing and how I write my books. So when I first wrote my book, it was not considered professional to write as if I was speaking to one person. You were supposed to write with the mode like you were speaking to a cast of hundreds.
Mm-hmm.
And my book was so intimate that it was actually a struggle for a little bit in the marketing, because people were being like, I feel like you're sitting there having coffee with me. Well, that is what people want now, right? They want that kind of understanding with an author. But at the time I was writing in my marketing, I actually had to state, look, this was a journey I went on. I don't want you to have to make the same mistakes I did. I want you to make different ones. I want you to be moving toward your own personal goal. And so that kind of pain actually caused me to shift the entire way that I had been trained to write. I didn't even write the way I was trained to write. And so that I can definitely speak to of when people tried to get me to be more academic in my writing. I went, no, there's plenty of books on money that are very academic. I refuse to write that. I want to write to the person who's struggling, who's in debt, who, all the things, right? Mm-hmm. All the pain points. I said, that's the person I'm trying to reach, because I want them to know there's hope. I was able to dig out. I know they can too. Mm-hmm. If they will follow this very simple system. And nowadays, it seems everybody has a system. Nowadays, it seems that everybody has got something. And I've heard a lot of people say, yeah, but I can't do it your way, Janine, because I have to do it my way, because when I try to use someone else's way, it doesn't work for me. And I said, that's why you need to write the book on the subject. Mm-hmm. Whatever that subject is, you need to write the book on that subject. You're being called to share your system. Yes, a lot of people are sharing their systems, but believe it or not, what you don't see are the 10, the 20, the 30, maybe the 50 people that they have helped with that. And we're so wrapped up in numbers. Like, do you have 1 million people following you? Is that really important? Or do you want to help those 50? Have you ever put 50 people in your house? Do you realize how many people that is?
Yeah.
Like, I tell people, they're shocked. I said, well, how many people are on your beta reader hub? And I said, currently I have about 70 people. And they're like, oh, because they were thinking I would have thousands.
Yeah.
And I said, I only want people who want to be in my world. I call my email list all the time. If you don't read an email of mine in 6 months, I think it's set up for 6 months. It's like you get booted off my service. I don't deal with that. I don't want the huge numbers. But have I ever put 70 people in my house? No, they wouldn't fit. So think about the people that you're serving. And sometimes people forget. They think they don't have big numbers, so they're not doing much. Please don't measure your success by that.
Yeah, it's a slippery slope. I similar to what you're saying, I caution people about the consumption, because we watch average 4 hours of TV a day and up to 2 hours of scrolling social media. And what we end up doing is looking at those numbers, looking at other people, comparing ourselves to other people. I don't have 1 million people on my Instagram followers, so I'm not as worthy as that person. And we're born to create. So creating 80 people that are interested in you is better than 1 million people that aren't interested in you. So I do agree with you on that. So what would you say? I'm always curious, like, how does Janine get in the flow with her business? What have you used over the years? Because AI is speeding up everything. There's such a change coming. How are you preparing, and what have you learned to be better prepared for the rapid change that's coming?
Well, the change is here, and it is going to determine, you are going to determine how you either integrate it, whether you embrace it, or if you reject it. And it's going to be up to you how you want to do those. The thing is I recommend integration, one step at a time. Bring it into your world 1% point at a time. And if you do that for 365 days, you will have that many percentage points, right? So you'll integrate it step by step. You do not have to eat the elephant all at the same time. And I think a lot of people think that's required. In order for me to do this, I have to do it all at once and blah, blah, blah. And that's not the way you do it. And when you look at successful people, what you don't see is the 30 years of them every day getting up at 4 a.m. to write their book. And that would be me. Okay. Every day I get up at 4 a.m. and people are like, oh my God, I could never do that. And I'm like, of course not. You're going to have to figure out your own path. But I am going to share with you what is required. And if you want to be an author, you have to publish. If you want to be a writer, you never have to publish.
Yeah.
Okay. And so that's how I like to share with people. It's like, you may be a writer. You may be somebody who writes every day. How much have you published? And this comes from my very first student. She's the one that started it all. She had 7 finished and completed books, complete with book covers, on her laptop.
Oh my gosh.
She had never published. She has an amazing science fiction series, science fiction fantasy. She always corrects me on that. Sorry, science fiction fantasy. It's 7. And I got her finally to start publishing 1 a year.
Wow.
Okay. So I know you people are walking around. I know you're walking around with stuff on your laptop that you're just too terrified to do. So either talk to Pete, get on Pete's calendar and talk to him about how to get the confidence necessary to allow yourself to create in a safe space. And that's by creating your beta readers. That's a safe space.
Yeah, it is. And I like it for this reason is, we're all kind of have that fear of rejection and being judged. And it seems like if I publish, there are going to be the critics, there are going to be the people out there that are going to go after you and say it's terrible, it was written. And who cares if they're not the kind of people you want? You want feedback from people that are like on your beta list, people that care about you, that are interested in you. And I think we have to separate those two, because there's always the critic out there who's never written a book, but first in line to criticize anybody that does, because they're fearful of writing it. So they go after others. What would you say? Because I have the workbook here, the 12 Ps that you and Jeff did. And you know, Jeff is definitely the brightest person I know, Jeff Bourgeois. So when he started really encouraging me to use AI, it was kind of like, I don't have time. I'm enjoying podcasting. I want to be focused. And he kept saying, like, play with it, play with it. You don't have to be dominated by it, but play with it. And being dyslexic and ADD, writing was never my thing, but I leaned into it enough to get through the stuck phase. Like I put a course together, and it helped me give me the framework, and I did some prompting after that. But it would have taken me like 6 months to do that in the past. And I saw the power of getting unstuck through AI. What would you tell, like we're hearing all about AI, and you of course know Jeff and what he's doing. How can AI assist our community? And what kind of advice would you give them?
First of all, AI is not new. If you have used an auto-focusing camera, you have used AI, okay? And those came out in the 90s. I think the thing about this AI is it's so interactive and it's open to the public. And that is not something we're used to. And it's exceedingly powerful. But talk to any photographer. What's the very first thing that they teach you? Go take pictures. Why? Because your first set of pictures are going to stink. They're going to be awful, right? So when you first start learning with AI, why do you expect that you're going to be a marathon runner with it when it's a tool that you haven't used before? Just like a musical instrument. That's how I approach AI. So how can it help our community? It can do a lot of things for our community. It can teach you creativity about yourself that you didn't even know. And I think the biggest one is it can crank out an email super fast when you're trying to be very politically correct, or you're trying very hard to say something that's difficult for you to say. Maybe it's just saying no to something, and to be able to do it with grace and finesse. So that is some of the things that I find very helpful, is like, I know my weaknesses. I know I am very direct. I try very hard to be gracious. I try very hard to be a very generous person. But there are days when I am hit wrong, and I lean heavily on AI to write an email so I don't let my bad mood go after somebody. So I learned a long time ago not to write email when I had a bad mood going on. I can recover quicker from it now because I have AI that can kind of get me out of my moment that I was hit with. So that's one thing. But what is the biggest one? If you have an idea for a book, definitely use AI to kind of flush it out. And what I love is that the thread only works for about 75,000 to 100,000 words of conversation, and then it starts to degrade. And that's where people get frustrated, because they think the AI should be this long conversation. No, it's project-based, pretty much like any other computer, okay? And it is a linguistic platform if you use ChatGPT. ChatGPT is based on linguistics. And so if you want to use that, is very helpful to authors like myself. I write a lot of books where it gives me the outline, and I'm not halfway through the book and I realize I don't want to go in that direction. I end up doing it my own way anyway. So I just wanted to remind people, the AI is like you mentioned, it's great for starting the structure, but you will have to bring your own flavor. So it's like AI, if you want to talk about cooking terms, AI is the basic bechamel sauce. But depending upon what you put in that bechamel sauce, you can take it any direction you want to.
I like that analogy. When you said that email, it brought back horror times. When I got into the online world, I got into social media, and I always enjoyed marketing. And so when social media came up 10, 12 years ago, whatever it was, I had a client in California, and I had a couple partners, and they kept pushing me to get the money in the house. And I was like writing this one email. It took me all day long, 8 hours to write one email. So it wasn't something I could do, and I'd change it and looking for this, and the words would be wrong. 8 hours I was agonizing over this. I lost the account anyway, because he told me, be patient, because we pay the smaller vendors after we pay the bigger ones, and unfortunately, you're a smaller one in the whole mix of things. Gave me good advice, but I was listening to my partners, which I didn't last very long with them. They're pushing the rainmaker to get the money in so they can get paid. But it is so good about getting unstuck. And I think for me, never writing much in my life. I've probably completed 20 journals in the last 3 years. So writing now is almost my first thing I do to flesh my ideas out, get the flow of stuff, because we get all this stuff going through our head, like 60,000 thoughts. How do we keep them straight if we don't get them out? So what would you say, like, I want you to speak to my community of, I know we talked a little bit about my procrastinators. I have a lot of people that they get easily distracted. How does Janine stay focused?
Okay, well, according to your question, I see two different types of people. You have procrastinators, and then you have people who are easily distracted. Okay, so I'm going to speak to each of them.
Okay.
First, we're going to talk to the folks who are easily distracted. It means you're creative. Some people don't understand that. Creatives have Leonardo da Vinci called it, they have a high tolerance for chaos. They are able to stand in a space of unknowingness longer than the average person. And so when you see that as a skill set, I like to read a lot of old books because they don't have a lot of the lingo and they describe people more thoroughly, in my opinion. And so when I read Leonardo stuff that's been translated into English, I thoroughly enjoy what he writes about people, especially. And he's talking, of course, about artists. And of course, he's talking about people who either draw or sculpt. But he always starts the same. He goes, I don't care what kind of artist you want to be, you must draw. Go out on the street corner with your book and draw. And I find that fascinating. So if you find yourself easily distracted, I would like to remind you, you're easily distracted because you do not have a project. What is your project? And you're like, I have so many projects, I don't know which one to work on. Oh, there's always one project that makes you happier than another.
Yeah.
I guarantee you. Now, if you are similar, now this literally did happen to me. I had 4 projects. I loved all of them equally. That's the one I said, which one is the closest to being 70% done? And that's another thing I'd like to tell your distracted people. Only operate till it's 70% done. When it's 70% done, you publish it. You send it out to get money for it. When it is 70% done, go get the money, get the project published, put it up on YouTube, whatever the completion task is, you go to 70% and go. Because as a distractible person, you're always wanting to fine tune it. And I appreciate that part of your heart, but it's not going to get you where you want to go. And so 70%, go. All right. To your procrastinators, you're procrastinating because you don't want to do it. You don't want to do it. So acknowledge that. I don't want to do it. I'm not going to do it. You can't make me. You're not my real mom. Find out why you don't want to do it. Because obviously some element of you is saying do it, right? So look into that. Sit down, journal it, whatever, talk it out to Zoom. I don't know.
Yeah.
But you've got to figure out why you don't want to do it. And once you figured that out, then you might stumble across something that your dad told you when you were 5. I don't know. I'm not a psychologist. Or you might stumble across something that you're just still pissy that your partner told you XYZ and you know that better. I don't know what it is. So for your procrastinators, find out why you don't want to do it, because that is gold. That is gold you're digging.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's great advice. There was another person that our listeners know about. I read a lot of just the people that have accomplished things that I want to kind of get closer to. So Jeff Bezos, in his stockholder letters, he said we never had more than 70% of what we needed to move forward. It was like once we got to 70%, it's like, do it. Because people will sit there trying to get to 100% or 90%. You never can, because life isn't perfect. You just have to go. And he used that 70% number. So I love that you.
Oh my gosh, I didn't know that. Well, first of all, I was taught that the 70% rule has been around a long time. And so I'm glad Jeff brought it out, because a lot of people will listen to him. And I that's why I'm grateful. So
Yeah.
if Jeff Bezos is, I'm talking to like I know him. I don't. Okay, so if Jeff Bezos is talking about the 70%, would you please listen? Because
Yeah.
he's right. From somebody who's just taught a lot of creatives over the last 30 years, we
Mhm.
use the 70% in my industry because when you do 70%, you will produce more. You will get a portfolio built if you're an artist. You will get a book finished. You will get more books finished. Because when you hit 70%, there's something in you that's like, I could do better. I could do more. And I'm sitting there poking at you, hit publish, put it up on YouTube, get your TikTok done, and you will see progress. If
Mm.
you don't do 70%, you will not see progress. You'll just sit there and cycle and cycle and cycle, like what Jeff said. Yeah. So
Yeah.
I love it that I don't care what industry, but yeah, the 70% rule has been around a long time, and I'm
Yeah.
glad he's mentioning it because now people will listen. That's great.
Yeah. That's
That's great.
it is, because we have our perfectionists out there, and we all have a little bit of that. I had a person, I shared a video with her, and it was like there was a comma off or something. Like it was like I said, it's done in the Philippines. They don't even speak English as their first language. I'm just having him practice. And she says, well, what if he put something out there that it's not professional? Like, I think we think that everything's got to be perfect before we get it out there. I said, I don't care. I want him to learn. Yes, when we go back a year and we see the progression
Mhm.
of his work, you'll say, you know what? You don't start out perfect. You got to, it's messy at first. You're trying to, you're figuring out, but you're awkward. You're in that zone of being uncomfortable, that if we don't get through that uncomfortable zone, we can't get to the stage where we get better. What would you say? I want to be respectful of your time. So I want you to tell our viewers, how can they get a hold of you?
Well, what
We have-
you've posted on the screen is only for my podcasters.
Yes, we love our podcasters. Okay, podcast community, this is just for you.
Yeah, just for you, what you have there. And for those who can't see it and are listening, if you go to my website, janinebolon.com/chat, you can get a 25-minute call with me. I've known Pete a long time. Normally, I do not open up my calendar like this, but I've known Pete a long time. I trust his people not to waste my time. I know you'll be respectful of it, but talk to me about your project. I may not be a good fit for you. Believe it or not, I use a lot of these calls to say no. However, I have quite a group of people that can help you should you need assistance. And so that's what I do is I use you folks when you call me, we chat about your project, we do a summary, and then we make sure that I'm a good fit for you. If not, you can go to my beta reader hub, which is on there. You can sign up for that. But if you would like to talk to me, I'd love to chat with you. And last but not least, Pete, thank you so much. Keep doing the work that you're doing. I appreciate you having me on the show today. Please know that if you do need assistance, like you have a situation in your life that hit you like a ton of bricks and you do not know where to go, please talk to Pete Kane. He is a man that can help you with that. I've worked with Pete. It's been 5 years now, Pete. I know you didn't know that.
Yeah, time flies when we're
and when we're having fun. But
yeah.
I've watched Pete overcome hurdle after hurdle and just keep driving. And he makes not only an excellent team lead for you, but he also is that cheerleader you never had.
Man, I love those comments. And we're going to do something you talked about at the beginning of the show. I want to give our viewers a gift, the gift of learning. They go to petekane.me/connect. And I think I can put it on the screen here in just a second, because if they do, they get a $300 digital course on high performance habits mastery. So this is a way we give to you, because you may not be ready to do anything today, but you want to learn. Just like Janine talked about, you have to start that first chapter. You can't write a book and finish all the chapters at once. You do one chapter at a time. This course gives you 12 sessions. You move at your pace, but it allows you to get clarity, energy, courage, productivity, and influence. And all you have to do is go to petekane.me/connect. And if you use the word gift, it'll waive the $300 fee. So that's my commercial. Thank you so much, Janine. What would be the one thing that you would want our viewers to take home from this podcast today?
So from what I understand, we have 3 different groups. Okay. So the first group is they are walking around with a book on their laptop and it hasn't seen the light of day. Book a call with me. Let's get you on the next step. And then whatever your next step may be, we'll definitely have you connect again with Pete, because he was the one that brought you. And so we'll make sure you sign up for something that Pete has going on. The second thing is, if you are already an author and you are not making money, I wrote a book called Published Profitability. Get on a call with me. Let's figure that out. And then the third one, you've listened to this, you think I'm an okay person, but you really don't know if you want to do anything with that. You're either a procrastinator or you're a creative that gets distracted easily. Please book a call with Pete. Okay, don't procrastinate that. All you have to do is just get on a call with Pete so that he can refer you, because he is quite the connector. And I know the community that he's involved with, and he will not steer you wrong.
Thank you, Janine. I thank you. Appreciate those kind words. And thank you for getting up so early to be on this podcast, because you're not on Eastern time zone. So, no, that's so good. Thank you, Janine. Have a good day. And we appreciate you sharing this with people in your community that can benefit by the advice that Janine shared with you today.